The antiseptic stung my nose, and the fluorescent light above me hummed like a threat. I lay on a gurney in the ER, bleeding through a thin blanket, ribs shrieking, leg blazing with the wrongness of a fracture. The crash itself had been a smear of sound tires, shattering glass, and then a silence so complete it felt like a lid closing. When I surfaced again, a ceiling crawled by on metal rails, and a paramedic's calm voice threaded through the fog. Pulse present, compound fracture, possible internal bleeding. I tasted iron, tried to swallow, and reached for my phone. The screen was cracked fitting, I remember thinking. So was I. I called the one number that used to mean help, Dad, voicemail, then a ring that cut off. On the third try, his voice arrived clipped and already annoyed. "Stella, what is it? I'm in the middle of something. Claire's having a moment." I stared at the light and said, "I'm in the emergency room. Car accident. I think my leg." "Are you dying?" he said, and then again, impatient. "Are you dying? Because Claire bombed an interview and she's spiraling. She needs support right now. Don't call in a panic." The line went dead. I held the phone against my chest, more stunned by that absence than by the pain threading my side. When the nurse came back to ask if anyone was on the way, I nodded, because habit is a stubborn thing. I watched the door. No one came. In that waiting, something shifted. I understood not just that I was alone in that room, but that I had always been alone in that family. This wasn't new. It was simply unmasked. Claire had always been the fragile one, the golden child, the gentle emergency. She switched majors, changed cities, tried and failed and tried again, and my father met every stumble with money and praise and soft hands. I, meanwhile, was the steady daughter, the competent one, the role that excused neglect. My birthdays were quiet dinners. Hers were string lights and tiered cakes. When she backed Dad's car into a fence drunk, it was a learning experience. When I forgot to refill the tank once, I earned a lecture on respect. In college, I worked 2 jobs while he paid her rent and bought her a new laptop because her old one stressed her out. When mine broke, I was told to save up or check Craigslist. Those slights had seemed small enough to argue with, to smooth over in my head. I called it love with different packaging. He worries about her more because she struggles. Lying there under the hospital glare, I ran out of packaging. What I felt wasn't love. It was expectation wearing a friendly mask. I had been rewarded for what I gave and ignored for what I was. Competence wasn't celebrated. It was exploited. By the time I was moved to a quieter room, night had dulled the edges of everything. The nurse dimmed the lights and tucked the blanket around my cast. "Is your family coming?" she asked. "No," I said, and the word surprised me with its relief. I needed protection not from pain. I could bear pain, but from the version of love that watched me bleed and called it drama. I scrolled past my father's number, past Claire's, and tapped on a name I hadn't used in years. Eliza Grant, an attorney who had once handled a small housing matter for me. She answered on the first ring. "Are you safe?" she asked. "Yes," I said, "but I need legal help." I explained the accident and the call and the years of quiet subsidies, transfers and can-you-just requests, and the way my checking account was treated like a community fund. "What do you want to do?" she asked. "Cut them off," I said. The words came out like a confession and became, instantly, a key. "Do you have documentation?" she said. "I do," I said, surprised to hear it. I'd been saving records for months without knowing why: screenshots, bank statements, emails, texts. Some part of me had anticipated this moment. "I'll be there in the morning," Eliza said. "You don't have to do this alone." She arrived just as the sun slid through the blinds. Navy suit, hair pulled back, briefcase of order in a room full of noise. I handed over a flash drive and my phone. She built columns out of chaos, dates, memos, sums. When she turned the screen, the total sat there like a verdict, nearly 6 figures in 5 years. Down payment money, debt clearing money, my future siphoned drop by drop in the name of peace. "This isn't generosity," Eliza said, tapping a message where my father called me strong and asked me to front Claire's car payment just until she stabilizes. Her voice stayed even. "This is financial dependence with emotional leverage." "Do I look foolish?" I asked. "No," she said. "You look conditioned to prove love through sacrifice." Something cracked in me then, a soundless thing. She guided me through revocations, the general power of attorney I'd once handed my father, just in case, beneficiary changes, removal of shared access from every account. "I'll handle notification," she said. "Expect noise. We'll keep it clean." She suggested a trust and drafted the beginnings. I signed with a casted wrist and an ache that had nothing to do with bone. Grief, I realized. Not for them, but for the self I'd dragged through years of being useful instead of seen. They came that afternoon, as the hospital had warned they might. My father led with the look of a man who wanted to appear rushed. Claire followed, sunglasses perched like a costume of fragility. Their eyes found Eliza, and the concern drained out of their faces as if it had never been there. "Who is this?" my father demanded. "My attorney," I said. "Sit if you want to talk, or walk out." "Is this about earlier?" he said. "You weren't dying. Claire was in a bad place." "Over a job interview," I said. "I was in surgery prep, alone." "You're being dramatic," he snapped. "You always turn everything into a crisis." "Eliza," I said without looking away from him, "would you play the message?" She tapped her phone. The room filled with our past, his voice. "Why are you making such a fuss? You're not dying. Don't call in a panic. Claire needs support urgently now." Then Claire's, thin and sharp. "You're so self-centered, Stella. I'm spiraling." Silence sealed the end of the call. "You recorded us?" he said. "After you hung up," I said, "because I knew you'd rewrite it." Eliza stepped forward with papers. "As of today," she said, "Stella has revoked all financial permissions and designations related to either of you. Power of attorney, shared access, beneficiaries. You no longer have any claim to her resources." "You can't do this," my father said. "She can," Eliza said, "and she has." Claire's face crumpled into practiced need. "I'm looking for jobs. I can't go back to Mom's. I need help." "That's not my problem anymore," I said. "You've had years of lifelines. I was the one bleeding, and you made it about you." "Your family," my father said. "Your blood," I said. "It's not the same." They left in a churn of outrage and disbelief. The door closed with a sound that felt surgical, clean, final. The quiet after wasn't peace. It was aftermath, heavy and damp, like the world after a storm when the clouds still cling. They pushed back just as Eliza said they would. Claire texted that I'd humiliated her, that I was playing the victim now that it gets you sympathy. My father wrote that I had betrayed him after everything he'd done. I muted them. I let the phone rattle itself into silence. Then came the public performance, a vague Facebook lament about ungrateful daughters. The chorus gathered Aunt Lorraine with "Loyalty is everything." I didn't respond. What surprised me was who did. A cousin I barely saw messaged, "Claire was always the storm. You were expected to be the umbrella." A coworker left groceries at my door. A friend texted, "You don't owe anyone your survival." I cried then, not because I was crushed, but because I was seen without payment. I went back to therapy. We didn't analyze the accident. We examined the architecture that had kept me obedient. "You weren't loved for who you are," my therapist said. "You were rewarded for what you gave." It landed like a key turning. I built a life with locks, a separate savings account, new emergency contacts, a trust with my name on it. I blocked numbers and resisted the apology I didn't owe. It wasn't rage that guided me. It was quiet, the kind that lets you hear your own breath. Months passed. My leg traded cast for brace for cane for an ache when it rained. The deeper wound took longer, the one shaped like my father's absence and my sister's need. Healing was incremental. Cooking for myself without needing to serve anyone else. Walking alone without feeling hollow. Laughing because I finally felt light. They never apologized. They stopped trying after Eliza's final notices went out. Their silence, once a terror, became a gift. I filled it with people who showed up without being summoned soup on the porch. A ride to physio, flowers from the neighbor's garden. I learned a truth no argument had offered me. Family isn't the shared name. It's the ones who arrive when the lights go out. So if you're still waiting to be seen, still earning love with cuts you call compromises, listen. You don't have to bleed to deserve care. You are already enough. The day you stop begging is the day the healing starts.